I have to sit here.
No, you gotta sit there, Mayor Morris.
I have to sit next to Larry.
Mayor Pro Tem Morris. Want me to be your Pro Tem? Call to order. Whatever you say.
Yeah, he wants the glory. I heard you.
He wants the glory. He wants the glory. I'm gonna do it.
Your name is over there too.
Yeah, I'm more of that. I gotta look and see that.
Hey Pat, move his name. I'm gonna go move his seat.
We moved the name.
That could be Terry Morris.
You don't want to do that.
When I grow up, I want to be Terry Morris. Yeah,
I'd say in about 20 seconds.
I got one over there.
You got that right.
Give me 1 minute, Terry. I need an agenda.
Terry, wait a minute.
Council meeting.
Hey Pat. Yeah, so he thinks he's got it done.
50-50,
50-50, 77, 75.
50-50. Split. I'll go for you. You can get a point. Mayor point. The mayoral point. His date.
You bringing him in, Larry?
Yes, I am. I think he deserves a little bump. Yes, you covered, man.
Look at that.
Here, Mark.
Whenever you're ready, Mayor.
Yeah.
At this time, I'll call to order the September 17th, 2018 Joliet City Council pre-council meeting. The Honorable Mayor Pro Tem Terrence Morris presiding. Mayor Pro Tem?
Terrence.
We'll begin with roll call. Mayor Odekirk is absent this evening. He's out of town. Councilman Dickinson.
Here.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Here.
Councilman Girl.
Here.
Councilman Hug.
Here.
Councilman Morris.
Here.
Councilman Mudrin.
Here.
Councilwoman Coleman. Here. Councilman Turk.
Here.
How you get the gap?
First on the agenda this evening is a proclamation honoring Arlene Albert. Oh, there you are.
Well, I'm very honored to do this proclamation for Arlene. You ready? I'm ready. Okay. Arlene Albert will be retiring after devoting 37 years to the Joliet Township Board of Education. Whereas the Joliet Township High School District 204 Board of Education consists of 7 citizens of the school district, each of whom is elected to a 4-year term, and board members serve without pay. Got that? They don't get paid for this. No pension either, she said. In 1981, Arlene joined the Board of Education as a write-in candidate. She was elected with the highest number of write-in votes of any candidate in the state of Illinois except for Chicago. That's quite a feat. Wow. Arlene has resided in Joliet since 1969 when her late husband was recruited to serve as Joliet's first Community Development Director. She has resided in Joliet since 1969 and has been active in numerous community organizations such as the Joliet Region Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the Council for Working Women, and the League of Women Voters. Arlene has professionally worked for Symphony of Joliet and has also devoted many years facilitating Alzheimer's dementia support care groups. Arlene has been awarded the Illinois State Board of Education Outstanding School Board Member and Illinois Association of School Boards Master School Board member. She has been recognized by local community groups as recipient of the Joliet Area Region of Commerce and Industry Athena Award and the Rabbi Hirschman Community Service Award. Now, therefore, I, Robert Odekirk, Mayor of the City of Joliet, on behalf of the Joliet City Council, do hereby congratulate Arlene Albert on her retirement and dedication to the Joliet community. Signed September 17th, 2018 by Bob Odekirk. And I got a little nervous here because Arlene was a neighbor of mine for many, many years, lived across the street, and she is going to be sorely, sorely missed. But we'll keep it. Thank you. is yours.
Thank you.
No timeline, okay?
First of all, thank you for recognizing my accomplishments, for being here. This has been a great community to live in, a lot of opportunities, and I really appreciate it. I appreciate the Board of Education I work with, the administration. JT's a great place. But I have to tell you that the people that sat in your seats in 1969 are really the reason I'm here. Because my husband was recruited as the first community development director for the city of Joliet. And as a matter of fact, when I read in the paper that you're going to do a comprehensive plan and you haven't done one since 1959, I have to tell you guys, there was one done in the 70s. Because I remember sitting at home with the kids when he was doing focus groups with council people, with community people. And so there is a comprehensive plan in the 1970s somewhere on your shelves. But I thank you for this honor. It's been great to be a citizen of Joliet. I really appreciate it. I will miss my involvement here. I will miss all my friends here. I will miss the people that I sat and worked with. Jan was my neighbor for a long time. Ralph sat next to me on the school board. We had a really good time. So thank you so very much. It's very much appreciated.
Take a picture of all us together.
Bring the school board too. The school board that's here for the board. And we'll get a group picture. We're gonna scoot. You get that. You stay in the middle. You stay there.
How are you, Trace?
Come in a little closer. I don't want to get in front of you.
You guys want to sit down? Sit.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they won't do this. Oh, yeah.
Are we good?
Can you get us all?
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Cheryl, you need to be in here. Come on, Cheryl. Let's go. Go, Cheryl. Go, Cheryl.
Operator error.
That's the IT guy.
So I only took a picture and it actually worked the first time.
Woo! All right.
Arlene, thank you for your service.
I let my wife take some pictures.
Oh, thank you.
Good luck. Good luck, yes.
I'm always directing.
Thanks for all your work.
Congrats and thank you for your service, dear.
Thank you for your service. Next is citizens to be heard on agenda items. First is Mike Marchio, Council Memo 467-18.
Good evening, City Council. I'm here to talk about the rail yard that's going in. Some new buildings were being built, and our street is becoming a main thoroughfare. Swipes are white to there, all the cars, traffic, semis, all night long. We were just trying to get the street blocked off if it was possible. The first time they talked about this was about 10 years ago. They were gonna close the street, close the railroad crossing right there. So that would take care of some of the noise and all the traffic. We got semis crossing there all night long, cars coming and going, cars stopped by trains, turn around in your yard. It's just becoming a madhouse out there right now with all the traffic. And if they're not going to put any, if they're not going to put some or some crossings there with something quiet, because you get up at all hours of the night. They don't come there with one train pulling, one diesel. They got 10 diesels on it. And those diesels are wider than this room. I've seen 8 to 10 diesels pulling them trains across down going east and going north. It's getting where the people are getting aggravated, waiting for to get to work. You know, these people ain't making a whole lot of money, but they're trying to get across those tracks. And let me tell you, you never see anything like it in the early hours of the morning. Cars come and turn it around. They'll come right down my drive, right around my drive, and drive right out. And then once one goes, they all go. So you got lights coming right in your house, turn around, go back out. Having a real rough time sleeping there, especially with the noise from the trains. If we could get them, if we can get that bell quieted down and get that railroad crossing, because if that train sits there for 24 hours, I have seen a train sit there for 24 hours, and the gates are down, and the bell rings for 24 hours nonstop. Ding, 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 ding. Just sort of drive you nuts. You know, you can't go outside. You can't open a window. You got 8, 9, 10 diesels sitting out there on the railroad tracks, and they're pretty close to Greg's house. They're all sitting there. You can't open a window of them because it'll fill your whole house up with diesel if the wind's right. So you have to leave your air run constantly. I just like to say, hey, we'd like to get that road. If they could dead end the road and let them go down the way they had planned this, 80 to that new highway and over, that'd be great. Because that little road ain't gonna be able to hold all that traffic. We got one of the culverts is already caved in on both sides. The edges of the road are bad. And I almost lost my family already down there. I almost lost my daughter-in-law and my 2 grandkids. They got hit on Patterson Road and Laraway. One semi was sliding on black ice. She was right behind him. And the other semi was coming up, and she looked in the rear view mirror and says, man, he's gonna hit us. She pulled out just in time. She still got rear-ended, but they rear-ended her car and the semi at the same time. It took the back tandems of that semi and moved them over like 18 inches. And all the gravel and everything's laying all over the street. If she was in there, I would have lost my family. If they got caught between there, that'd have been the end of it. My son lives on Vetter, I live on Schweitzer. And my sister lives right next door to me. And we just say, we're just about had it with all the noise and racket. We could just have a quiet zone. We don't care. If they could quiet it down. No, shut the railroad off right there. Let them find another way in there. I mean, is our road the Hall Road? Is that they're gonna widen our road and make us the Hall Road? I poured myself into whatever I do, I pour myself into it. If I build a house, I make it the best I can make it. Just like I did down here on Washington Street. I took the ghetto I was in, and I took it and tried to make something out of it. I made a really nice place down there. And people just love staying at my place. I try to keep them up. So my biggest thing is if we can get a quiet zone or dead end the road right there at the railroad tracks, let them find another way in, that'd be great. Because if they dead end it by the railroad tracks, there won't be any more noise. Because they're gonna be blowing no horns. You can't cross the tracks. That'd be great. I don't know what to say, but I really appreciate letting me talk. I know that my sister and the rest of my family are out there. They're just fit to be tied.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you for letting me talk.
Councilman Moore, yes. I'm aware of the situation, and I was going to ask Jim and Mr. Hales if we can't do something to accommodate those neighbors. There's 8 homes out there, and we've had our meetings out there, and it is pretty noisy, and this thing with the horns with the Union Pacific has been going on for quite some time, and it is loud and noisy. And when we did have our last meeting, Union Pacific was not out there to address these issues with them, but I know that there's been talk about closing Schweitzer. I don't know if it's feasible way to go. I'm not an engineer, but if the 2 of you could do something to help these neighbors, I would greatly appreciate it.
David, if I could say just a word or two about this. We're the city, we're already working on a quiet zone out there. It started with Greg, is it Smith? I think it's Greg Smith. Yeah, I've talked to him a few times in like early summer. And actually, we've started the process. There's actually going to be a diagnostics meeting. One of my engineers will be out there on Thursday. You have to meet with all the different agencies. The FRA, ICC will be out there, obviously city, the railroads. So there's going to be a meeting. We're trying to get a quiet zone at Laraway, Schweitzer, and Millsdale. So it's a slow process. Greg, I explained to Greg, he has a pretty good handle on it. It may take us, who knows, a total of a year to get to it, but we're working on it, and we're hoping this will happen. It may be quicker, but we're right now, like I said, we're at the next phase. We're actually having a meeting with all these agencies out there on site. They want to look at all the conditions and that. That's one issue, and then the second thing, as far as closing it off, the city manager has seen a letter that we have sent. The Public Works Department has sent to Centerpoint. Centerpoint's looking at doing some potential additional development on the west side of the tracks and relocating Brandon Road, and we have a lot of concerns also with what they're proposing to do, basically shift Brandon Road a little bit farther east and closer to the railroad crossing. So one of our recommendations is to close that road off, close the crossing off. On the east side, it would block traffic coming your way. That's one option. Another option we gave would be, if you're not doing that, something to the nature of having a signal where Schweitzer and Brandon tee in and tie in the gates and flashers from the crossing, so we don't have accidents. We're very concerned about potentially having vehicles backing up onto the tracks. And that's going to be high-speed rail, as everyone's aware. So we're working on both ends right now.
Thank you, Jim.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Yes.
Sure.
Jim, is there a time limit as to how long the trains can block that Schweitzer Road? I sat there one time for 4 hours, and the train was blocked, and I ended up getting around it. But I mean, it's kind of frustrating for everyone when the train just stops there for 4 hours.
I'm not exactly sure. We can ask that question. I don't know exactly. I'm not going to lie to you on that one.
Okay.
Councilman, I can answer. The answer is no.
I would think not.
There was actually a state statute that had a limit, and then there was a federal case that basically overturned that. So.
Okay.
So no, they can't sit there.
We cannot. We can't. They can sit there as long as it needs to be. Yeah.
Whoa. Thanks, Mark. When you
if there's nowhere for them to go, what are they going to do?
It had to do with FCC and the regulation of interstate commerce, and the engineers and being on the train a certain amount of times and having to stop it.
So I have a question, Terry.
Yes.
So there's been change of management on the upper echelon of UP or Union Pacific. So I would like to know who that is and who the contact person is now that these neighbors can call, because we're getting the calls and we can't really help them. It's up to Union Pacific to see if they can help alleviate some of these issues. And I'd like to probably see them come to the council meeting so we could talk to them.
I do know there is a Illinois State government liaison representative, the UP. Mm-hmm. At least that's a starting point now. But I think that is the type of individual that will come out to our meetings, and I'd suggest we start there.
No one showed up at the last meeting.
Well, they did not.
No. So.
I know we got them down in Bloomington now and then for meetings, but
they were coming before, but now they've changed people around, and the person did not come. So I think they need to come and see this. Thank you.
Sure.
Marty, did I understand you right? In some cases, it certainly has to do with interstate commerce, which is governed by the federal government. In some cases, it has to do with how long you said the engineer was on there and what he needs time to rest.
So it's actually the case is out of Des Plaines, where there was an ordinance prohibiting stop trains from blocking an intersection for longer than 10 minutes, and that was actually a state law, and the court held that the ordinance was preempted by Interstate Commerce Commission Termination Act and the Federal Railway Safety Act.
So did I understand you correctly? Did you say that sometimes the reason is because the engineer's been on there long enough, he's gonna stop?
That's one of the reasons that they talk about in the case.
So to get him arrested, our regulations would keep these people awake for 10 hours.
You're gonna have to take that up
We
with
need to talk to our federal
You're
representatives,
gonna have to
correct?
talk with the federal government about that
Well,
one.
no, our representatives, with them.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on an agenda item?
Yeah.
I had to wait until the semi's backed all the way to daylight.
No one else?
Seeing none, we'll pass it to the city manager to discuss the items on tomorrow's agenda.
Semis are back it all.
Mayor and council, just before I get to the public hearings for tomorrow night, is we'll have a number of council committee reports. During one of those, tomorrow in the Finance Committee report, Jim Gadotti will be giving an update on kind of the mid-year financials. So I am recommending that the chairman of that committee, maybe as part of the finance report, give Jim a few minutes during tomorrow's meeting for a few key highlights of that report, which I think will be of great interest to the council. Jumping down.
Mr. Hill, committee, did we have a land use meeting since Don?
Yes, but it's tomorrow night.
A report, there's no.
We'll add it.
Is that on there?
Okay.
We can add it.
We just add it for tomorrow night. If you all want to hear from me, that's. Maybe that's why I was left off.
He is the chair, you know. We better get it back on the agenda, and the mayor, so let's go.
I'll kind of pass over the consent agenda. On public hearings, Council Memo 46918 is an ordinance pertaining to, excuse me, wrong page. Let me go back to the Council Memo 46618. This is an annexation associated with a Love's Travel Stop. As per the memo, it is being recommended by the applicant that the matter be tabled to the October 2nd City Council meeting. So that is the only action for the council to take tomorrow night. On that Council Memo 46618. Is there any other questions?
Yeah, on that, I had a question, and maybe for you, Jim Tristner. I guess I got a phone call about a new traffic study was supposed to have been done, but not given to the city. I guess someone had talked to Jim Torrey, the resident did. They called
we had not seen one in Public Works. We just saw the original one. I've not seen a supplemental one. I don't know, maybe Mr. Hansen can talk about it. I see in the audience. I've not seen an additional one, no.
Okay.
Or I don't think Ross or any of our guys have.
Right. Well, I think that's who they said, Mr. Hampson, and I don't want to quote him 100%, Mike, but that you had mentioned that it was a new study done. Mike, you mind?
Yeah, we are in the process of some new tests. New council been done. When everything is final, we'll turn it over to the city, of course.
Okay, so it hasn't been done. Okay.
It's in the process of being concluded, yeah. Then we'll turn over to the city.
Okay. They was under the impression that it had. Thanks, Mike. Thank you.
All right. If there's no other questions, under Council Memo 46718, this includes approximately 5 different parcels that total 17 acres. And all of these parcels combined have been requested by Centerpoint Properties to both be annexed into the city and to be classified ITC zoning. As indicated in the staff report, in the early beginning of the intermodal center, the Centerpoint was recommended they continue to look for opportunities to purchase some of the private properties for inclusion in their industrial park expansion. And hence they are coming tomorrow night. As you notice there's, and if you look at the map, all these properties are in close proximity to one another. The total 17 acres of all 5 of these also do have some relationship to some future transportation, logistics, warehousing that CenterPoint is in the process of working on. So rather than mention each one of these, they're located adjacent to Brandon Road, Schweitzer. Let's see, and I think those are the ones. So that memo pertains to those 5 properties, and we'll have a public hearing tomorrow. The Planning Commission voted 6-0 for approval of all the annexations by ordinance, as well as the zoning classification for each of the 5 properties. Is there any questions the council might have on those? Moving on to ordinances, tomorrow night there is a Council Memo 46918, ordinance approving the preliminary plat and recording plat of, if I pronounce this correctly, Popescu, a minor subdivision located along Vision Avenue and Cedar Breaks Court in the Mirage subdivision. This particular preliminary plat and recording plat will allow the construction of 4 new homes. Planning Commission voted 6-0 to recommend these ordinances and this action, as well as the staff. Next item, Council Memo 47018. This is ordinance approving the preliminary plat and recording plat of Sable Ridge Re-Subdivision Unit 5, located at the northwest corner of Black Road and Sable Ridge Drive in the Sable Ridge subdivision. If approved, this would allow the re-subdivision of 71 lots, including a new townhouse plan that D.R. Horton is proposing at this location. Planning Commission recommended by a 6-0 vote approval of this preliminary plat and recording plat.
Mayor, question. According to this map where the layout is, where will the single family homes be located?
Mr. Jackson, can you help answer that question?
Yes, I can. Members of the council, the single family homes would be located to the west of this site. I don't know if you have your maps open in front.
I have the map up. It's kind of at an angle. So is it where the middle?
I'm sorry. To the east of the site.
So is that the top of the screen then?
No, it would be to the right of where the map indicates these townhomes would be going. There's a large section there of single-family lots.
Okay, what's the court? I have Spalding Court, Acala Court, and then there's Forum Court.
Correct.
Which court is it? On the outside, the townhomes are in the middle?
So on your map, there's sort of an outline of the entire townhouse section. Those will all be townhouses. And to the right of that, so it would be Homan Avenue extended to the east. That's all single family.
All right, this is kind of hard to read.
Is it 7 single family homes then? Am I seeing that right?
Just 7?
71. Well,
7 single family
units.
Yep. Right.
Okay, so 71 townhomes and
Correct.
7 single family?
No, there's no single family as part of this development. So the single family homes were, and this is all per the original plan, are to the east of the townhome site here. So the only thing that's under consideration are these townhome lots, 71 lots. And those are all townhomes.
And then across the street, you're talking about Homan will someday be single family?
Correct. Yes, that is correct.
But they're not platted out yet. We're just doing the townhomes
they
right
are
now?
platted, but not built.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes. Any other questions?
Yes. Kendall, how does that meet the 80-20 breakdown of multi versus single family?
It's per the original plan. So this development took all that into consideration back when they came in for their original approvals. It's just the fact that the single family market went down and some of those homes just were not built. Now this developer is coming back and finishing out the townhome product. At some point in the future, the rest of those single family lots should be built.
Thank you.
No.
Okay. Moving on, let's see. Next, Council Memo 471-18 is an ordinance. And there's two options here. One is to approve a waiver request. The other is to deny the waiver request pertaining to required public improvements for street lighting along McDonough Street. And this is in connection with the Water's Edge subdivision. We do have the executive director, the Joliet Housing Authority here tonight, together with other staff members. They have requested that the staff's recommendation of $24,000 be paid to the city to be placed in escrow at such time in the future when IDOT would require or street lights to be added to this major arterial street, McDonough Street. If you reviewed the material, you'll see that IDOT is pretty selective. They don't want to see street lights be put in on a piecemeal basis, but when they have a need for a larger stretch, then they will come back and look for participation. The Planning Commission on this particular matter, there was 3 aye votes, but then 3 nay votes, which meant that there was no recommendation provided from the Planning Commission to the City Council. The administration and myself are recommending denial. Basically, if you do approve the waiver, then at some future time, all public taxpayers or the resources in the general tax revenue of the city would be required to make this payment for these street lights to be put in at the time so directed by Illinois Department of Transportation. So any questions or?
Yeah, David, I guess I'm confused. I thought that the Housing Authority, and Michael or John can correct me if I'm wrong, wanted to put in this waiver that when the time comes, they will bring the money or pay the money for the lights. And it wouldn't be on the backs of the taxpayers.
And let me see if there's clarification, Mr. Jackson, was that offer made by the Joliet Housing Authority or Mr. Trisna, either one?
Yeah, so we did meet with the Housing Authority, and the decision was made that since there was no pending project, that the Housing Authority would come back through the process and ask for their waiver. There was just no project in front of us that we could see that would create a situation where the lights would need to go in. So given that, they decided to come back through the process.
Seeking a full waiver.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I see.
So it changed from what I just said, Mr. Simon. So you want a full waiver. You don't want something written in to say that when IDOT do decide to do the whole McDonald Street, which I don't see why they won't, but you all wouldn't give us the money at that time because you're asking for a waiver to be completely out of the picture, even when IDOT do decide to do McDonald Street. Okay. So maybe we had a conversation before you all. See. Yeah, John, because I'm confused.
John Chow, Housing Authority. I think we had that discussion, and I think our contention was basically we're a governmental agency. We're willing to commit that fund when there is a possible project that come forward. I mean, we've done similar things with the tree planting, for example. We were committed to add in additional tree. Last year, we came back this spring and planted it, as a matter of fact, a couple of weeks ago. So that was our thoughts, you know, as far as there's no pending project, immediate project. It could take years, you know, to hold $24,000 of money right now could be problematic to our operation, I guess. But we are committed to, you know, if there's a project that comes forth, to put in that $24,000.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I thought that's the conversation we had.
Yeah, we had that conversation.
That's not what I'm hearing now. That you all, when IDOT do decide to do the street lights, you all will pay the $24,000.
Yes.
Is that the same? Is that what you're hearing, Kendall, or no?
He's saying when there's another.
It was a discussion.
If there's a project.
Yeah, so in our discussion, I think we were just kind of focused on whether or not we had a project, which we don't.
The project is IDOT saying we're ready to put the street lights on all of McDonald from Chicago Street to the bridge. When IDOT say we ready to do that, the Housing Authority, if it's 2 years from now, if it's next week, or if it's 20 years from now, Housing Authority is going to bring $24,000 to the city and say, here it is. And then they'll put that in writing. That was the conversation I had with Housing Authority. And I didn't see a problem with that, me personally.
And as city manager, I would recommend that be strongly considered, because unlike you know, developers and others who come and go, the Joliet Housing Authority is going to be there for a very long time, and in collaboration to have the attorney prepare a document that would be binding, you know, for a long period of time, that when IDOT's ready to go, we could exercise, notify the Housing Authority to kind of come up with their share at that time. I think is I've seen a lot of agreements of that nature in collaboration with other governmental units.
I mean, you know, to be fair to Kendall and the staff, that was a preliminary discussion that we would do that. But I guess we were thinking to carry on the process of asking for a full waiver. That's how the discussion ended up during the pre-planning or planning meeting.
Larry?
Yeah, my question would be, you know, I mean, we have rules. And I know David and some of the representatives here are saying, well, we can treat them different because they're government. And I don't know if a lot of people are going to say, are going to buy in to trust me, we're government. But anyways, it's not a lot of money. You're fully saying, you're saying that you're fully prepared to pay for it, whether it's next week, next year, or in 10 years, right?
I see that.
Well, you know, there won't be a money shortage when it comes, so just put it in now. What is 24,000? I mean, why not just put it in like everybody else is required? Everybody who builds in Joliet is required.
Well, I thought there was a waiver process to consider.
But why is this 24,000 so important? Why can't you just put it in? Doesn't seem like a big number. Unless, of course, you don't have it. But if you have it, then put it in. That's my question. We're setting a precedent that there are exceptions to how we treat developers, regardless of whether they wear the public badge or the private badge. You know, the whole thing about self-governance is that the rules apply to everybody.
Well, Larry, I kind of looked at the Housing Authority to be the city of Joliet. This is not Will County. This is not Joliet Township. To me, this is the Housing Authority of Joliet. The mayor appoints the commissioners, who hires the director, who hires the rest of the staff. It's a part of the city. It's like asking the city to put $24,000 of our money into. I know they had their separate.
I would disagree. We need to clarify that. No, they are completely have the authority to manage public housing throughout the entire county of Will. Am I correct? The entire county. It's not a Joliet entity. It's a county entity. I don't know why the mayor appoints. I don't know how that happened 100 years ago.
Because they just became throughout the county more recently, and I guess the bylaws hasn't changed.
We're not asking for anything that any other developer hasn't asked for in the past. Not any different. I don't care if it's $2,400 or $100,000. We're asking for the same consideration that you've given other developers in similar situations. That's what we're asking.
Kendall, I don't recall, and there may be some truth to that, I don't recall ever voting on making an exception, me personally. Now, if it happened 15 or 20 or 25 years ago, let me know.
Yeah. Well, just to clarify on the process, before a couple of months ago, all of these requests went through the city manager's office. And the city manager had the discretion to provide for waivers. With our new city manager, we've got a different direction, different leadership on these waiver requests. And we were asked to formalize what we actually have in the rules. So the rules state that you can ask for a waiver. I think in the past, though, we never had a formal process, and so it always went through the city manager's office. Those types of requests. Now these things are coming to you as a formal request.
As it should be. It's called transparency.
Let me just clarify. The ordinances have always been, for some time, explicit that only the council can grant a waiver to the subdivision rules. What was happened before my time is apparently they got away from complying with the city ordinances and bringing those to the council, and for whatever reason, prior city managers acted on, to grant a denial or waiver, but it wasn't in compliance with the city ordinance.
Oh, it was illegal.
So when it, one came up, which I think it was that church site here recently, we put this process so all those came to the council as it should be. And I think that was the first waiver in the process, and there was a waiver given on the street light and sidewalk.
In the out of the back room process, the out in the open light process.
Yes, out in the open.
So that precedence doesn't, whatever they did in that back room, I wasn't part of. We have rules, and I think the rules should apply to everybody moving forward. Or we're going to make exceptions for everybody. Somebody wants to build a subdivision?
The exception was made on Rowell Avenue with the church.
Sure.
So that's what we're saying. Even though that was done in the back room before, this one was not done in the back room. It was done by the city council voting on it.
The exception for the church was city requirements for lighting. We're talking about something that we don't have control over, that the state can demand tomorrow that we start putting them up, and we don't have the money we take money out of our general fund. There's a difference there. But that's all I have.
Right. Thank you. And anyone else? No one?
Okay.
I mean, again, I just see it is somewhat different than a general contractor, a developer, the one that we just looked at that's going to build a townhome. I do. And again, I was under the impression that they didn't have any problem bringing the money, and they the housing authority. I don't foresee them going anywhere in the next few years, hopefully, that they will be there to bring the money when the time comes. I was under the impression that the funds would be used. They challenging with the Fairview development to demolish that and to rebuild up there, Liberty Meadows 3, 4, what number we at now? 4? 3, okay. And that's what I was kind of thinking personally. Okay, John?
I mean, one more comment. There is existing street lighting out there now. I mean, what we're talking about is enhancement to McDonald Street whenever IDOT is ready for an enhancement.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Council Memo 47218. There's only one property addressed in this ordinance. That's 211 Edward Street. And it's recommended that this particular property be declared a public nuisance by ordinance. On Council Memo 47318, we have an ordinance proposing a feasibility study and report with respect to designation of a certain area as a tax increment financing redevelopment project area, or the former Silver Cross redevelopment project area. I'd like to ask Steve Jones, Deputy City Manager and Economic Development Director, to just comment on this ordinance and the request, and if you just can also give an update on the Silver Cross property and what's being done there in the way of the marketing and the listing that currently exists on that.
Sure,
Steve?
thank you.
A little over a year ago, we started to have some significant discussions with the ownership of Silver Cross with regard to their desires to proceed with some future redevelopment. As most of you know, that as the actual hospital had existed, there were many years of trying to market those old medical buildings, which were pretty unsuccessful. So in the summer of 2017, we started to chat with Silver Cross. They were telling us about their plans to do the demolition. And in conjunction with that, we started to have some discussions about the potential for a TIF district out there. Obviously, the property has had some challenges over the years, and through an incentive district, potentially, we've got the ability to bring some new development that's pretty much unified development to the east side. So back in September of 2017, our Economic Development Committee met and discussed the possibility of moving forward with the TIF. We brought it to council in October, and City Council did approve a contract with SB Friedman to start that process, start the study. You know, let's see if it was eligible. Let's see if there were some attributes of the property that would be a good way for the city to follow. After a lot of discussion, you know, we were working with various property owners, see who may want to be part of the annexation of Silver Cross property, see if any of the individual residents wanted to be part of the city. We had a lot of map changes, we went through a lot of gyrations, but we're at a point where we think we're ready to proceed for the actual formal feasibility study to be done. It's approximately 100 acres. It includes the area we all think of as Silver Cross, along with the adjacent school located to the east and some commercial properties along Maple. We are looking to actually start the official process through the adoption of this ordinance, and this is really where the time clock starts. You know, anything we were doing up to this point was pretty much study and analysis. This starts a process by which the council has to actually eventually receive a formal document, approve a formal document. We start notification of all the taxing bodies. We start to set public hearing dates. We start to go through establishing joint review board meetings. So literally, if council approves this tomorrow, you know, we now have a formal timeline that could be shared, and we'll get a sense of when this whole TIF process can occur. The discussions up to this point with regard to marketing the site have involved a major real estate broker being retained by Silver Cross, Lord & Companies. They do a lot of work in Chicago area as well as the suburbs. In fact, David and Derek Conley met with Lord to talk about the property at the ICSC show in Las Vegas. We've had several discussions, talking about what the city vision for this property is. And primarily, we think there's real potential here for sort of a town center, mixed-use development that will allow for some additional rooftops, have some commercial activity, hopefully, you know, tie things together with regard to the existing medical uses and healthcare uses that already exist, along with, you know, accenting the fact that there's a VA facility there. There's talk about perhaps another expansion of the VA facility, along with some of the veterans' housing. So we look at this as almost, you know, a neighborhood within itself that has potential for that unified development approach. But obviously, the TIF is something that that would really be necessary to help make that project feasible. And you know, from a timeline perspective, we have had this TIF discussion along with the broker and Silver Cross discussions about marketing the site. And I think for the most part, if this TIF were to move forward, that becomes a real marketing point that helps attract those developers. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, but the clock starts if the council approves this tomorrow.
I do have a question. In the feasibility study, what exactly what steps do they go through? What do they check? For marketability only, or do they check the property, they check the land? What type of study do they do? Under state statutes, there are two ways a property can be established as a TIF. I can't hurry up here.
I'm sorry, I'm probably not close enough. Yeah. Under state statutes, there are two criteria, outcomes that can happen with regard to evaluating property. It's not marketable, you know, it's not saying that the land use should be X, Y, or Z. It's evaluating whether the property is either blighted according to factors established by the state, or what's called a conservation area. The preliminary feeling is that this is not a blighted area, but it meets the criteria of conservation area, similar to what the designation was for St. Joseph's TIF, along with the downtown TIF. So you check off boxes. You know, has there been good planning over the years? Has there been upgrades in code that no longer are met by portions of the property? Are there lack of utilities? Are there things that could be done that really require TIF to bring it up to 2018 standards? So it's really an analysis of the property. They did go into the buildings and analyze the buildings prior to the demo, which is allowed as part of the overall feasibility study. And you know, conservation district really is where we are. It's not blighted. You don't have boarded up homes. You don't have, you know, tumbleweed and tall grass rolling down the street. So it's in need. You know, it's in need of assistance, but it's not into that blight.
If I could just add, when we did speak to Mr. Lord back in May, we asked him if they were going to do a marketing study to determine what are some of the potential uses. They hadn't decided at that point in time. So as indicated, I think certainly that would be wise for them to do so. But you know, we'll wait and see. But I agree that the feasibility study is definitely a good thing for us to move ahead. And you have a map included in your packet of the current boundaries for that TIF district that is being proposed for the feasibility study to evaluate. So, any other questions on this memo, this item? Moving on to resolutions. Council Memo 47618. We have an executive session after this meeting. We'll continue discussing in closed meeting the topic of leasing of city property. But for the agenda tomorrow night, we do have this placeholder for the council to consider resolution on a final lease and agreement pending further discussion with the council tonight and further negotiations. So this was also a topic of the stadium committee earlier this afternoon.
Are they going to present to the rest of the council what they presented to us at the staff, at the committee meeting?
We did not have, they certainly had that option. They could still, you know, do so at the end of this under public comments, but.
I don't know about the rest of the committee, but I would like for them just to touch on a few points to give to the whole council what we got at the meeting today, so that when we do talk about it later, you'll have the whole picture.
I think they had a handout. They might also have additional copies for the rest of the council.
I don't know about, what do you think?
I think they should.
Yeah.
Yeah, would the applicant like to come forward, or their attorney? Mr. Semeca's here, and
yeah,
I think that would be appropriate.
We don't have this. We got that.
Can we put it up? He's asking if
I'm
we
sorry.
can put it up. I'm not sure.
Does everybody have a copy?
Yes.
Flash drive?
Oh.
You have a flash drive, we'll get it up for you.
Yeah, Nick, I just thought, let the whole council hear what you told us earlier so that we can all make a good decision.
My pleasure.
But you have to start with the championship game. And when it's being held.
It was rained out tonight. So.
The championship game tonight was rained out. I'm happy to inform everybody that Heather, our general manager, also doubles as a technological whiz, which means that we will be live streaming Game 5 tomorrow on the video board in the stadium.
At the stadium? Oh.
Pardon?
Microphone closer to you.
This one?
There you go. Both
there
of
you
them.
go.
We're good.
We will be live streaming Game 5. Unfortunately, it's a Washington broadcast, but it's their ballpark. We're going to have it up on the video board, free admission. For those interested, we may even serve a cocktail and a hot dog.
Ooh.
So put in your calendars tomorrow, get your meeting over fast. You know, there aren't Eastern times, so they will start a little earlier.
And probably suggest people bring their binoculars too, to really focus in on, or not. Maybe you can see.
I think you can see that video. I mean, I can't see anything. I'm an old guy. The youth represented in this august body won't have any trouble.
When I was here last, I thought, gee, I wish I would have brought my binoculars. But here again, I'm older. My eyes are going.
We're in the club. I think we're close. Yeah, that one on the bottom. So we just turn it to page 1, next page. So in our discussions with Mr. Shanahan and Mr. Hales, one of the topics that came up was what have we been doing in terms of adding new events and filling the stadium with the advent of turf this year. And so I'll try to be brief, but number one, this first page we're pretty proud of because we've had a significant increase in usage with the installation of the turf. What the data shows is for this strange time period, which I'll explain in a moment, we've had a 40% growth in events over 2017. We selected that time frame because April 27th was the first day that Mr. Trisna and his team allowed us to utilize the turf, that the construction was actually completed, and obviously September 16th was yesterday. So we're up 40% in terms of dates utilized. We're up actually 73% in terms of the total events, and the numbers look a little weird, but that's because in many cases we had 2 events and in a few cases even 3 different events in a day. So chances are, if you stop by the stadium on any given day, there's something going on, number one. We estimate our attendance at these events at least 10,000. It's probably a little bit north of that. So we're also bringing, not only having things going on, but we're also bringing more people in the stadium. And we feel that this is just scratching the surface because now we actually have a full winter to plan for additional events. We have new partners, which I'll explain in a little more detail, that we have started a relationship with and we can grow in the future with. And further, there are other folks that we've reached out to and are in discussions with, for example, a number of concert promoters that didn't book anything in the stadium this year, but are very interested in talking about the future. So we like the 40% growth. We feel it's just the start of something big. Hit the right button. So here's just a listing of the people that have been in the group. The bolded names are groups or events that have not been part of the stadium in the past. And it's not only booking the events, it's making sure that the promoters, the participants feel good. Here's a quote from Jared Voss, the head baseball coach at Joliet Catholic, and on his views of what it was like to be part of our stadium this year. I wanted to talk specifically about a few of these groups in more detail. And I want to take those of you who were with the council 2.5 years ago back to the time when you asked us, when the idea of turf was just a twinkle in everyone's eye, what would we recommend that to be done if turf is installed in what was then obviously Silver Cross Field? And we talked about sports tourism. We talked about the growing activity in youth sports and travel sports. It was a market that, if my memory is any good, CNBC did a study on, and they estimated that the amount of money spent by families, teams, coaches, scouts, etc., was over $6 billion. I think that's a crazy number, but when we dug into it more, we think it's real. And we recommended that the city focus on this marketplace, that it's a great opportunity not only to put events in the stadium, but to create real live economic development. Pastime is the kind of group, one of the kind of groups that we've started to work with that is part of this industry. They booked their first events with us this year. It's pieces of some of their tournaments, 4 dates. One weekend we just completed, another weekend coming up in October. These guys do 150 tournaments a year. They have over 3,000 teams. All these little Johnnies and Jonies and Janies getting in the car with their parents to go to these tournaments. They play at a number of universities. They play at places like Notre Dame, and they play at Northwestern. It's out-of-state teams for the most part, which means they're creating demand for hotel rooms, they're creating demand for restaurants, they have shoppers trying to kill some time at the mall. They're bringing activity, economic activity into the community. And we're already talking to them about a 2019 plan that would not only expand their activity, but potentially take it to other fields in the community. And let me make that real. We looked at their tournament schedule. We said, okay, what are the kind of specific tournaments that we could potentially attract to Joliet? And here's one example. This is a real tournament that they did in 2018. They did at Texas Christian in Fort Worth. 3 age groups, 41 total teams, 1,000 visitors, 1,000 out-of-town visitors for the most part, each day of these games. 5 days of games across 5 different fields. So for us to pull off something like this, we'd have to reach out to JJC, we'd have to reach out to the high schools, but we think that's probably a doable proposition because they're all going to want a piece of this as well. And I pulled up a study done actually by the city of Grand Rapids who was trying to understand the economic benefits of their focus on youth hockey in their arena. And they had what I thought was a pretty conservative number for the amount of spending by families at an individual level. If we applied those numbers to this tournament, that means $630,000 of spending in the community over these 5 days. And since the people in Grand Rapids were kind enough to break it into individual categories, to break it down between lodging, between dining out, between shopping, we could actually look at what would the city earn by looking at the portion of sales tax that goes to the city, by looking at the hotel motel tax, by looking at the food and beverage tax. And we calculated over $30,000 in direct tax revenue to the city from a tournament of this sort. We started working with them. They're very happy. They're looking for places that can host these kinds of tournaments because they're growing like crazy. So to me, this is a terrific example of what we are aiming for going forward on sports tourism. There's other elements though. Do It Stevie's Way is a nonprofit that was formed to honor a high school student who was a baseball player at Mount Carmel who tragically died at age 17 after heart surgery. We brought those guys into the stadium first time this year. We had teams from places like Mount Carmel, Lockport, Lamont. This is a tournament that, again, is bringing fans into downtown. They're raising money for charity. We hosted 6 of the games. It's actually 20 plus games in this tournament. I think it's another example of the kinds of things we've been able to attract with the city's support, utilizing the turf. There's just on the next page, I won't read this, but just a few comments about what is Do It Stevie's Way. And again, a testimonial from one of the organizers. We have a dedicated extra events manager, Corey, and he works his tail off to make these guys have a great time, make them happy, and I think that's paying off. There's other elements, though, of this sports tourism angle. It's not just baseball tournaments, but another baseball activity, again, that we were able to attract to the stadium this year is the Prep Baseball Report. What these guys do is they actually, act as a clearinghouse between Major League Baseball teams and the top talent in the country. And they do these regional, what they call showcases. We were able to attract them to do 2 events here in Joliet. Again, these are travelers. They're staying in the hotels, they're going to the restaurants, and you can see for the Cub fans, Ian Happ is a graduate of this program, for example. it's again, an organization that is growing, and we want to be part of their growth. Another element, because it can't all be baseball. We think that the sports tourism goes beyond just baseball, because there are travel teams in lacrosse, travel teams in soccer, travel teams in softball. And this isn't technically a travel team, but it's another event that we put on where we were partnering with two veterans groups, a national group called For the Fallen and a local group called And Our Patriot. And we enlisted a third party as well to help organize this. We did a charity softball event. We involved the Illinois Gold Star Mothers. Again, in this instance, about half of the teams were traveling from out of town, bringing in tourism dollars to Joliet. And again, you can see on the right-hand side of this page, you know, the testimonial. They had a great weekend. I always love when somebody says the weekend was absolutely awesome. And we can build with these guys. And I'm pretty sure, Heather, correct me if I'm wrong, that they are even talking about maybe trying to squeeze in another tournament this fall. So this sports tourism angle has many different facets to it. We did a music festival in August. We worked with a third-party promoter, and I got to tell you, this was a bit of a bomb. It didn't draw people. I understand there were issues with the promoter paying some of the vendors that they contracted with. And I don't know, I look at this and it says to me, I know I've heard some talk about, wow, we got to do more concerts. In a saturated market like Chicago, where there are literally dozens and dozens and dozens of venues putting on concerts in the summer, it's just not a slam dunk. And this guy spent over $100,000 on talent. It's nobody I ever heard of, but I'm not a big Latin music fan, but I think it's just a cautionary data point in the mix. And that's why, you know, I get excited, our team gets excited by what they used to call in business sticking to your knitting. There's so much opportunity on the sports side. That's where I still think we ought to be focusing. Just a quick on what's still to come in 2018. The assumption that you guys have a good conversation tomorrow. Family Fun Fest, which you guys are probably all aware of. We have a canine event, literally with dogs. One of the cool things, starting up actually tomorrow night. So if you do come to watch the game on the video board, you actually get to see a softball game for free too, because we're starting a Slammer softball league. Again, it's ways to, you know, utilize the stadium, bring the community more into the stadium. In 2019, we've got a couple of ideas, diversifying the sports, doing some lacrosse, doing more soccer for sure, additional tournaments with additional out-of-state people in particular. And we're right now in discussions for trying to host our league tryouts, which involves a couple of hundred kids who flew under the radar screen in terms of being seen by teams. They come out, they show their stuff. Every team in the league brings their staffs to evaluate these guys. And again, it would be a nice little moneymaker for the city in terms of all their hotel rooms, their restaurants, etc. And knowing this crew, there's probably a bar angle to it too. So we feel pretty good. 4.5 months ago, when we got this turf, we had it's a bit like a cold start. As I said, over 40% growth in terms of days utilized versus last year. We brought in new events like soccer. We brought in new partners like Pastime. We even figured out a way to do new events with old partners. The IHSA, which we're all familiar with and proud of, the Joliet's hosting the championships, they also have summer programs, which we didn't know about until Corey, our guy, found out about it, and we hosted the IHSA Summer Showcase. Heather would have to explain what that actually is, but I think it's pretty cool that we're able to, you know, again, as I said earlier, expand relationships with our current partners. We hosted the premier charity events we talked about. And as the most important thing to me is we're just scratching the surface, as I mentioned earlier. these big guys want to do more with us. There's guys that we've been talking to that for whatever reason, sometimes it's scheduling is a big piece of it. They need more lead time that we couldn't get in the stadium this year, but they're out there for next year and the years to come. So when I look at extra events, when I look at what my team has been able to do, I feel pretty good about it. Take questions if anybody has any.
Yeah, I have a question. What are we going to do to ensure that when people call the Slammers that they get phone calls back?
You and I talked about that, Duck, yeah. And it is not acceptable for us to not return calls. We're going to review our policies, but like I said, whenever they need my cell phone number, Duck, you give it to them. You have them call me. I'll give you Heather's too, or she'll give you her number. You know, when I wish I knew what the circumstance was, because that's just not acceptable. Period.
Good.
I guess I know when to get out of here. Thank you for your time.
Great, thanks, Nick.
All right. Unless there's any other comments, let me just run through a floor here. Council Memo 47718, resolution honoring an honorary street name for Margaret D. Graves on Eastern Avenue. Land Use and Legislative Committee gave a unanimous recommendation for the council to approve this. Council Memo 47818, resolution accepting dedication of a public utility and drainage easement for a water main and sewer main along southwest branch of Dollar Tree Lane that is needed. And Council Memo 47918, resolution appropriating motor fuel tax funds for Charity Avenue, Knoll Avenue, Redaccord roadway project in the amount of $514,549.90 to PT Farrow. That was taken up by the Public Service Committee today. Unless there's any questions on those three, I'd like to turn into Council Memo 480-18. Can I have Marty Shanahan just comment on this resolution authorizing execution of an intergovernmental agreement with Greenfield Sanitary District for the transfer of assets and responsibilities of the Greenfield Sanitary District to the city of Joliet. Marty.
So if you all recall, about a year ago, we dissolved South Ridgewood Sanitary District, and this is the second sanitary district that was causing some issues. They are units of local government, and they were not paying the bill to the city. Both of them were. So this is essentially a carbon copy of what the council did a year ago. So essentially, we are a unit of local government is being dissolved, that being the Greenfield Sanitary District, and then the city is going to start billing the customers directly.
There's no questions. Let me just, under awarded contracts, let me just kind of, the Public Service Commission, it was taking up Council Memo 483-18, 484-18, 485-18, 486-18, 487-18, and 488-18. As well as under amendments, change orders, and payments, Council Memo 490-18, Council Memo 491-18. I think all these are pretty self-explanatory. Is there any of these you may have questions on or you want staff to comment on? If not, I'll turn the time back to the city clerk.
So we have public comments. Is there anyone present that would like to speak under public comments? Seeing none, is there a motion to go into closed session to discuss personnel, collective bargaining, land acquisition, or conveyance pending or threatened litigation, after which the meeting will be adjourned?
So moved.
Second. Motion seconded to approve. Councilman Dickinson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Aye.
Councilman Girl.
Aye.
Councilman Hug.
Certainly.
Councilman Mudrin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Aye.
Councilman Turk.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morris.
Aye.
Motion carried.